Today, guys, we are absolutely blessed. It's one of the rare occasions we get to bring some of our team members in. And I say team members, even though Ed has his own company. Ed Roberson is a member of our team. He owns a inspection business here in town called HomeTeam, which is adequately named because HomeTeam really has become the inspection experts for the entire triangle. And I think your role and how you've seen your role is to be a senior calming influence in our industry. And so I'm thankful for that, and I'm blessed that you came today. But I've watched your career for a while, and I've watched how you're constantly giving back to the real estate community and the people around you. And I'm going to mention some names here because my business was going along just great at one point in my life, and I met these two guys. And their names were Kelly and Harold Jolly, and they became our inspectors of choice. They were these incredible men. Kelly, unfortunately, passed away at 55 early of a heart attack. His dad was already in hospice when this had occurred. Never met anybody that came actually out of hospice, took care of all his family affairs to make sure everybody was safe, and then went right back and passed away himself. But those guys were industry heroes to me. We didn't feel like we were ever going to find people to replace them. And you step right into those shoes. And I can tell you my team and the people here view you as that same kind of hero. Like it's crazy that people put that on you. But yesterday I was able to do an interview with a guy named Andy Wood, my insurance consultant, and he's that guy. And to be in a situation where I'm blessed enough to have two guys like you that come alongside me and help me lead my team to common sense, because that's what's lacking in the world now. So tell them about you a little bit, and let's kind of get this going. I know it's crazy when people just throw all these compliments at you, but they're deserved.
Thank you, Jim. I probably should just leave right now. It's only going to go downhill from here. But thank you very much. I appreciate those great words, and I appreciate the partnership, the relationship with JAG. And looking back, we have been working together for about 4.5 years now. I heard through the grapevine that there was a need. So I pursued it and made the impression that I wanted to make. But I think in our business, yours and mine, it is you have to sustain that impression.
Yeah,
it's great, go in to make a good impression and someone give you an opportunity. But every day that we go out, we have to do it again and do it again. And I say, often you're only as good as your last inspection, but I have the benefit. I'm the face of HomeTeam in the Triangle, and I'm the face of HomeTeam in these situations with JAG. But it's the team part that is out there doing the heavy lifting every day. I've got a great crew of inspectors. We've got great vendor partners that enable us to provide such a wide array of additional things. And I've got a great customer service team. And I think what everybody tries to do at HomeTeam, and I think you got one of the things you guys appreciate most about us is the responsiveness.
Absolutely.
If someone here has a question, if someone here has a need, a callback, we are, I used to say, we couldn't get to you fast enough. There is a case where we can get to you too fast. If someone has a question out of a report, we need that report in front of us.
Right.
To be able to speak intelligently about it, because if we did that even a couple of days ago, the guy's 2, 3, 4 inspections away from that, he shouldn't be talking about that inspection without looking at the report. But the point is, if we get a call, if we get an email, you guys don't have to wait and wonder when you're going to hear back from us. And I want to compliment the JAG team too, because as big in the market as you are and as successful as this team is, your team, and I think it starts at the top, but throughout your team, the reality of what I found as I got to know your team, I was so impressed by the fact that you guys do a hell of a business, but this is the most grounded, low ego, let's take care of business, no arrogance, top to bottom.
Intentionally too, and I will say this to you because, I grew up with meager beginnings. And, my parents both stressed to me at young ages that, no one's better than someone else. And, we grew up in an environment where there was either extreme wealth or poverty in the town. We didn't really have a middle class where I grew up. And the extreme wealth treated the people below them like they were indentured servants or people that needed to work for them. And you could really feel that tension in our community. And I didn't want to be one of them. I wanted to be someone who got to their level, but was the opposite or the antithesis of who those people were. That was a goal for me as a young kid. And this one today is about you. But you know what? It's the same thing you bring into your business because, what we were seeking is not someone who glossed over things and didn't find that things are wrong. We wanted someone who cares enough about both sides of a transaction. And because truly, when we enter a relationship, I care about the person on the other side of that thing too, because they're a real person. And, yes, I'm fighting for my client, but I'm also fighting for where is this fairness? Where is there a point where two people can meet and agree that even when they disagree, here's the best solution for the two of us. You guys help us get that. And for me, having a resource that I can pick the phone up and say, you know what, I read this, I heard this, and here's what I really think, even though I don't have to do it that often. I mean, the girls who are in my closing department are so good that literally both of them, my new home counselor, Angela, and Stephanie, who does all of my resale, I rarely have to even engage with them because they own their job so well. But when they do bring me in, I number one, I don't want to step on their shoes because I know they're the authority in that position. But when I call you and I kind of want to get my head around it first, then it's a calm level approach because we're looking for solutions. All of us are. If we go into life and our goal is to tear apart something, we can do that too. But our goal is, how do we resolve the issue that's here? And it's real. When you're finding it, we know it's real. It's not something that you're out there trying to, and I hate to say this about your industry because I think you could say it about any industry. There are some inspectors in this marketplace that the house might be perfect, but in order to justify the rate they're charging, they want to find something at some level, even when it gets to the point of being cosmetic, which is not even what part of this inspection process is supposed to be about. I feel that. But with you guys, I feel like, we're really getting an expert view of the interior and exterior of a house, but a fair one that is, you're holding things to what the industry standards should be, how things should operate properly, not that someone's put it together with piecemeal. That's what we wanted out of an inspector. But what we got instead is a confidant in you. I mean, really, like when we have our meetings, when you come, it's almost like there's a security that's happened in the building that everybody feels more calm. And that's that, where does that come from in you?
Boy, I'm just me. I guess I thank my parents. I got to thank my lineage. But to your point, in your situation with your team, of course, you guys are often on the listing side. And you're on the listing side of inspections that we do for agents that are not on JAG team. So you see a ton of our inspection reports on both sides of the deal. And the thing that I've always appreciated, when I came in and started this relationship, there was never going to be anything like, oh, we won't report this as strictly because it's JAG. We call things what they are. And your team understood that up front and understands it, and your listing people want that. And it shows the regard for clients that your team is interested in wants to know what it is that we need to know about this home. Now, what we do and the way we do it that I think helps HomeTeam and our reputation too is we work with our clients to make sure that they understand these things that we're talking about in a calm, educational manner. In other words, we want them to be there for a review on site because that helps them understand when they get that report later. When we get questions from people about a report, it's always someone who did not attend the inspection.
Right.
Because if you attend the inspection and get the review, when you get that report, there's really nothing in there that doesn't already make sense.
Right.
Because if it didn't make sense to you, you brought that up while we were talking about it on site. And while we're still on site, we can go and look at that thing or explain that system to you, explain how that component works in that system or how it's supposed to, what condition it's supposed to be in. But we couch those things in an informative and an educational manner. And we take the approach, as everyone should, that everything in a home is fixable. Now, it's not our job to influence that client toward or away from that house. That's we're in our lane bringing information, and then it's the job of the agent and the client to consult and decide what to do about those things. But our job is to help them understand it in an intelligent and helpful and calm manner.
So for us, like what we see your role as, I hate to bring everything back to sports, but sports have been a big part of my life. You're like the umpire on a baseball field. You carry the authority there, but you're not playing the game. You're there to make sure that both sides don't attack each other and that you're the calm and the reason in the storm. And that's what you bring to us. And we respect your authority. That part of it, the respect level between agents and the inspector, that's something that doesn't always exist. And it doesn't always exist because it could be the agent that's ego's gotten out of check, or it could be the inspector. It could be either one because, when we're talking about something that's wrong with something, we already know that one side's going to view it one way and the other side's going to view it their way because we can't see in another person's eyes. We have to be on whatever side we're on. But your job as this mediator is to be here and explain the house's purchase and describe, okay, here's what's really wrong with this thing. And guys, you have to figure out between the two of you how you're going to fix this item. But it is a concern. It's something that's correctable, but what's the cost? Like that's what it comes down to the majority of the time. And, like the other thing I really respect, I have gotten to the point that these inspections I get back, sometimes from other companies, it's like, I feel like maybe they're a vendor that's going to go repair this thing because they start giving me prices of all these things. And it's almost like a list and you're supposed to sign up and say, hey, I want you to go repair it too. I didn't think that was supposed to be the part of a business, right?
Right. Inspectors are specifically prohibited by the state of North Carolina, by our licensure law, from providing those repairs. Now, there are services that they can provide a repair quote, if you will. If they're soliciting that for themselves, that is not legal.
Okay.
So
Didn't know.
make sure your agents and your clients proceed properly. But in that situation, to your point about us being the referee, being the umpire, we don't have an interest in the deal.
Right.
But we have an interest in informing our client about the deal. And in any inspection report, right up front is the summary, and the summary is all the bad stuff. It's the defects and the safety items. And if that's all somebody reads, then all they know about the house is what's wrong with it.
Yes.
There's also a lot of good information in the report that explains systems and components and materials and conditions and that sort of thing that are a lot about what's positive about the house. And one of the things that I think we try to help clients take a balanced view is kind of, where on the spectrum, if you will, of concern are you with this house?
Right.
Because in fact, I used an example that was many years ago. I was doing an inspection. It was a late 50s ranch that had been refurbished. It was quite a nice house, and young first-time home buyers. And I was doing the review, and while I'm doing the review, I'm looking at my iPad and describing and discussing. And when I finish, I look up at the young lady, and a real deer in the headlights look on her face. Well, I've just talked about maybe 12 or 15 defects, but they were relatively minor. We're talking handyman stuff and just, what any seasoned agent would consider this is nothing.
Right.
So I look up and I see that look on her face. And so I felt compelled to say, look, as home problems go, these are big ones, and you just saw her kind of come back and relax. And the agent is nodding her head, agreeing with what I'm saying.
But you know why that happened? She was there.
Yeah.
Like I honestly, one thing that you just did recently for us, I had a young lady that was transferring from California that couldn't be here for an inspection. You guys shot the whole thing live on Zoom, walked her through her house from California to here, and she got to really see and learn about her own home, how to use it. Number one, it was a new construction house that wasn't 100% complete, and you guys found things. It was like a gutter that was discharging right in the middle of a driveway and that kind of thing. And she was really concerned about it until you gave the fix to how to get away from this concern. And the builder actually followed your lead because they weren't even aware that it was done either. And, I think so many times we're quick to go attack one side or the other. And I think there are a lot of buyers that are busy doing their jobs and other things, but they are too busy to go to their own inspections. And I really feel like your role is y'all get to explain the house to them, show them how to operate a house. And a lot of times homeowners never really learn that part of the process, right? They see their HVAC system. They have no idea how it really functions. They just know you turn a little switch over and it gets hotter or colder. But when they go to y'all's inspections, one of the things I hear from my agents is how much they learn themselves when they're there because they're hearing, everything you're saying. And I think agents can go to inspections as long as agents realize they are not either the buyer or the seller, and they're not the expert on the condition of that home. Their role should be to be there, learn for themselves, be a counselor maybe to it, but not interfere because they are not the expert in that field. If they were, they would have the license that you possess. And I really believe we have to let the experts be the experts.
Right. And it's an excellent point. But the value of the agent being there. Now, first I'll say there's some agents out there, not JAG agents, but there's some agents out there that are literally over your shoulder trying to talk the client, minimize the issue for almost everything you're talking about. And, we can't really do much about that. That's too bad.
It is too bad because they've involved themselves in being one of the clients, and they're not.
But what the agent can do, it should do, and what you're saying, you're getting the feedback from your agents, they're listening and learning. Well, first of all, they're padding their own experience.
Yes.
Because all of these things that they see, they're going to know, it just that's one more thing they've seen and heard and know.
It's a tool chest. They're filling their tool chest, and they're going to get to use these tools again.
Right. But the other real value of that is the more experienced they are, the more they understand these things and the more they make sense, and the more when we say something, they're automatically going to know what that means. Well, then later, when they and the client take our report and they're sitting down trying to decide the DDRA,
yes,
the agent knows how to advise the client. They understand these things, and they were there to hear what we said. Now,
yes,
they're hearing these things. They're in the business. They're hearing these things constantly about homes, about inspections. The client, maybe he's never heard any of this before. Plus, everything looks the same. It sounds the same.
Yes.
They're drinking from a fire hose.
Yes.
So when the agent comes in and sits down with the client doesn't know what they've seen or the client may leave the review, and they may or may not be able to tell you by the time they get home what they just saw and heard.
Right.
But the agent can. And so when they sit down together later, the agent, they're going over these things, the agent can reinforce for them and remind them what it was we said, what was we thought, what does this mean? Which is why, fortunately, in the triangle, it really shouldn't happen because, especially if it's in showing time, because I have to get this plug in to remind any agent out there watching this, Door 5 MLS lot box rules for home inspectors prohibit us from allowing the client in without the agent.
Right.
So that's their rule. They understand. But if you're an agent, you have to be out of your mind to allow your client to go to that inspection without you.
Agree.
Because if I do that review with a client without the agent standing there, I may be saying apple and the agent heard orange.
Correct.
And basically you're digging yourself a hole that you've got to work back out of when the client comes back and they're all up in arms and ready to walk away from a deal.
And I'm hearing this all the time because when the agent gets his information, really third party, because if he gets it from the buyer and they haven't seen the report yet, now the buyer has become the expert that's going to tell them what was wrong with this house, and they are uncertain, and they heard it from their perspective, and I've had it happen both ways, but man, I agree with you. I want the agent there as long as the agent understands the reason they're there. They are not there to inspect that house. They are there as learning tools. They are there to be a sounding box both ways. But really, their opinions don't matter because they're not the buyer or the seller. They are supposed to be a mediator that sits here, gathers the information, figures out if this is what's the easiest solution, because we are a resolution business, however it comes down, because if there's a real problem that's there in a home, and then I take it on and buy it, and I say, you know what, I'll fix that later. That problem is going to get larger and larger and larger, and it's going to be the same for the homeowner. If the transaction doesn't move forward, the great thing is that homeowner that now lives there maybe could keep themselves from being in danger. Let's say we had one that had carbon monoxide flowing into the house and they're living there currently without that knowledge. Well, even if the transaction doesn't move forward, now they know, gosh, if I don't fix this, it could impact my own health, right? But beyond all of the inspection stuff, one of the things I'm interested in, because it's that servant mentality I hear in you, and I've witnessed it personally through RRAR with all the different things you've spoken at. And I was fortunate enough recently to be in that round robin thing where we were both there supposedly as experts, and we went to those tables of agents to kind of give them the inside view of what we were saying. And, there were probably 7 or 8 of us on that panel, and I'm definitely not trying to toot my own horn, but I think when I spoke and when you spoke, and we were on opposite ends of this front table, I could see the audience like, oh my gosh, those 2 guys are speaking from an authority position. But I watched, and you were there for 2 or 3 hours working with these guys. When did that become Ed's responsibility, and what makes you so willing to give that time?
I think the willingness comes naturally. I can't really explain that. The ability to do it, the availability to do it again, I go back to the fact that I built a team that enables me to do those things. Now, those things happen to benefit my business, but in ways that there's not a, how would you say, there's not a direct relation to you. It's what we say about networking, giver's gain, kind of
It's a truth.
I do good things for you with no expectation of return. But when you're thinking about something, maybe that would be, maybe Ed should know about that.
Yes.
And in fact, let me give you this example of somebody out there. I got this opportunity to take you back. We've never had this, I've never shared this story. I had this opportunity with JAG from a very similar situation. I'll tell you the story. I went to a networking event, and it was at a time, there were tricky parts of COVID. There was the early part where everybody was scared the world was ending, and then real estate went out the roof, and then real estate got so crazy that people stopped getting inspections.
Yes.
They were throwing so much money around, and they thought, why spend another $7,000 or $8,000 when I have to, or $100 when I have to buy this house? Well, that's why you have to buy this house. You probably need to know these things. So anyway, it's kind of a low point in
our due diligence fees.
Yeah.
Like the due diligence fees were so large that people had to go forward because the loss was going to be incredible.
But their mistaken logic was, I have to buy this house anyway. Why spend this money? Well, there was a following wave of regret. But the funny thing is, what happened here happened the same all over the country.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in a network of inspectors all over the country that communicate the same things that we saw here were happening. So anyway, back to the story. I was at this networking event, and there's a guy in the market, his commercial agent, and I'm always, call me a Pollyanna, but I'm always, everything's great, everything's fine. I'm not telling
that's how life
things are horrible. But he called me at a vulnerable moment, and I said, well, frankly, business is terrible. And he said, what can I do? This guy, he's always been very solicitous like that. And I said, any warm introductions would be great, because in times like that, the more people the more you might get a little market share, there. So within the next day or so, he called me and said, hey, I heard Jim Allen's looking for an inspector. And so fast forward, he had given me the coordinator's contact.
Right.
I emailed, I called, didn't get a response. I got in the truck and came up here, walked in her office,
right,
introduced myself, and we clicked. Right from the beginning. So that was how we got here to begin.
Yeah, and Amanda was in that role.
Was in that role, and I walked in unannounced and sat down, and we clicked.
And she picked the phone up right after that day and called me and said, I think I just met the embodiment of Kelly and Harold Jolly here in my office, exactly what we've been looking for. And I mean, really, Ed, the reason we were looking for that, we had a trusted partner that passed away. And, you know, we tried several different people, but we felt like some of the inspectors we were using were inspectors in name only. And we honestly felt like they were in it. All businesses run to make a profit, to make money, no question. But if that's the only goal that you have when you're in business, the thing you chase will be the thing that runs away from you, and it will be the money. And that's what we were running into that over and over, where people were giving us lip service, and we almost felt like they wanted our business so bad they were willing to compromise their integrity, and we don't want that. We want a fair judgment and assessment, because my license is at risk. If I bring an inspector in and he just says what I want to hear and doesn't really care about those clients, they're going to not just come after the inspector, they're going to come after me. And I view every transaction, that this transaction going forward or this one closing is not worth risking a career and the integrity that we built up and the trust. Like the trust is what we're seeking in the community, not to be the biggest, baddest, best. That happens when trust is there and time. You know, like I formed a team just like you did. My team has grown and gotten better. The reason I did it, I don't know if it's why you did it. Were you into sports as a child? What made you so good at being on a team?
Played 3 sports for as far as my talent took me.
Right.
But yeah, it's you know, I found this business. I started this business at a time when a lot of people are looking for their career exit. I wasn't in this business while I had a whole industrial career for 35, 40 years before I even started this.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So when I got into this, and the funny thing about it was, this was more me than anything I'd ever done before.
You ever feel like, and we've never talked about our faith, but I feel like God takes us to the place that we're supposed to be sometimes. I mean, we fight, we try to take ourselves these other places, but as we mature as Christians, as we mature as people, we find, hey, here's what I was really meant to be. And I think that's what you found.
That's right? What I found. I agree. And sometimes if you you kind of let that hand of providence, help you along, sometimes we might be better off. But what HomeTeam is about is we are a team. The agents we work with are part of the team. We have great vendors. Our termite guys are well-accepted guys. It's amazing how well-coordinated all that is. And it shows. It shows to the agents and the clients. Your coordinators love it because, they
got to make one call.
They got to make one call. One call does it all, folks.
That's right.
But a lot of this just came naturally. You challenged me to think about it and put it into words. And I tend not to think about it. It's just what we do.
Natural. And same thing for me. I mean, like when people ask me all the time, how do you do this level of business? You know what? I never thought about it because it just grew by itself organically. And as I was doing it, each time you feel like you're going to put in what's there. And I really got, unfortunately, sometimes in being a leader, you don't always get to do the fun parts of our business. Back in January, with the young lady I was talking about, and in February, had these 2 clients back-to-back coming from California. There were problems that happened with our agents. One of them had just had a child and actually was in the delivery room. the day before the client arrived. The other one of our other agents, Sydney actually had a baby, was supposed to be having this great field inspection to work with this buyer that was going to meet with this builder, and the other agent on our team coming in represent the buyer, but didn't really know much with that builder. So I stepped in, and then when I stepped in for Sydney, we got to meet each other, and Bev and Tony, the two clients that were there, have become lifetime friends for me from the experience that day. But what I heard when we were there, as much as I wanted them to buy that builder's house, it wasn't the right house for them. And so when Barry and I were sitting there talking, I took control. I said, Barry, do you mind if I put them in my car? You can follow us, because that way your car will be it. And we drove to another house that I felt like met what they were describing a little bit better. And Barry said, fine. And he followed us over, but I got to know them on the way. And you know what? I've got a child who's blind, and we were seeking help for it. We were in an upstairs bedroom at that house, and I was watching her, and she wasn't really engaging. And the next thing I knew, I could see a tear coming in her eye. And this before we had discussed my son being blind. And she said, Jim, yesterday when we were thinking about coming here, my doctor called me and told me, so her mother had just lost her vision. He told me I have the same disease and I'm losing mine, and I'm already feeling the impact of it. And I really feel that God brought us in that space so that we could share. We both cried a little bit. We got to know each other while we were there. And then the eye doctor that I had gotten through another friend to help my son at the Pittsburgh Eye Clinic, I called him while we were there. And this guy is that humble servant person that everybody wants to find in a doctor. And Dr. Sahil picked up immediately and said, Jim, how can I help you? I said, I've got this friend of mine, Bev, here, and she's struggling. 3 days later, she was on a plane to Pittsburgh to see him. He was able to comfort her, Ed, and actually tell her that, you know what, the diagnosis you've got isn't what you have. And the truth is, Bev, even though you've lost a little vision, it's stabilized. You're not going to continue to lose it. Your mother's condition is totally separate from yours, even though you're related. These are two separate things. He was able to comfort her, bring her back out. Then my wife and I went out to dinner one night with Tony and Bev and just really formed a relationship. They were coming New Year's Eve when all this stuff happened. So it was like right there when everybody else isn't working, we all were. And you know what? Through that conversation, we started talking. Her dad had just gotten dementia and was really struggling health-wise. And my mom had passed away with Alzheimer's. And we bonded and were able to discuss those things. And then a month later, her dad was at that moment where it was life's getting ready to not be here anymore. And we were able to talk a lot on the phone over there. And I was able to share with her how I viewed it when my mom passed, because I dreaded that my whole life. I was a mama's boy. No human being loved their mom more than I did mine. But I didn't love that disease. And I lost the disease, but my mom, I knew, went straight to heaven and got to get her wings back and got to be herself again. The same thing with her dad. And when he passed a few days ago and she was able to call me and talk through it, I could tell she was, I don't take claim for it. I think she was able to see it because of what we had experienced. But I also think if she weren't that kind of person, and I'm so glorified, and I feel like, thank the Lord that y'all brought this situation together, and then we were able to do it. And then that, you haven't even inspected their home yet because it was being built, but you're getting ready to, and you'll get to meet them. But right out of that is when Lauren, the girl that you had helped from California, came. And quite honestly, I'd had such a great time sharing with that person. And I hadn't had a buyer in my car in years because truly I'm the rainmaker of what we do, and I don't compete with my agents. And I've learned, even when I sell it for them, if there hasn't been another agent involved in my team, I'll do a drawing in my office and give that commission to someone else because I don't want to steal from my team. And I feel like maybe every leader doesn't see it that way, but I feel like if I put my own interest above my team's, why would you be on my team if the best buyers, I take them off, or the best sellers, I hold them tight for me? That's not how I view my role. But right after that, John Tennant, another guy on my team's wife, was going into labor, had this client that was coming to town, exact situation. And because I'd had so much fun working with Tony and Beth, I called Lauren. I said, Lauren, you're going to get a neophyte here. I'm not good at working the combination. I hadn't been getting into a lot of houses recently, but you're going to get somebody with empathy, and I'm excited. And I want John to be there with his wife when his child's being born, but I want to have the time to spend with you if you're okay with it. That relationship too is turned into a permanent friendship where we're helping each other, but it's all about that. And then when she went to California, she was so freaked out that she wasn't going to be able to be there for that inspection. And when I reached out, you said, oh, it's not a problem. We'll just put it on Zoom, or we'll figure it out. We'll do FaceTime. We'll figure a way for her to feel like she's there. She called me 5 minutes after the inspection and said, Tim, you're not going to believe. I felt like I was in the house. I learned how to use it. I was worried about the elevator. I was worried about, it was a luxury home. I was worried about this. I was worried about that. The builder hadn't completed the outdoor kitchen yet, and I just didn't know what it was going to look like. Thank goodness your inspector was able to describe how the thing vented to me and why it wouldn't hurt the porch. And if I hadn't gotten that, I don't know what I would have done. And then he also helped me, and I know he wasn't there to inspect the grounds, but he walked outside and was able to help me understand this drainage area that was between the two lots and explain the ground cover that was on it well enough that I understood why they put this different. I didn't like what it looked like, but now I understood its purpose, and he helped me figure out how to cover it. And I know that wasn't his role, but like, that's the feedback I got, and it was amazing. And then I called you right after to say, hey, thank you, because she felt like, I'm making this extreme purchase. She had sold a big company, hadn't had a home like this before, and then she was just totally comforted.
Right. Well, that sort of thing, I say it's easy. We did that. We didn't even miss lunch, so we were able to do all that for her without taking anything away. It was free. It was free, and it was easy. And so,
but you were willing to do it too.
Yeah.
You could ask someone else and I don't really want the liability of that. What if the communication, I would hear all the reasons why not to.
Not to, yeah, and I had thought of that. It never occurred to me not to.
Because you're a problem solver, not a problem creator.
It was easy to do. It was something we could do, and I guess that ties kind of back into your earlier point about all the things I do with RRAR in and for the real estate community. And frankly, its base, part of that is to overcome what I consider a weakness for me. And that is, I'm not a salesman, but I own a business. And if you're in business, you're in sales, whether you like it or not. So how can I sell without selling? how can I make HomeTeam appeal to the real estate market without walking into someone's office unannounced and say, "Hey, want to buy some home inspection services?"
Yes.
A lot of in a lot of the old school conventional home inspection sales no longer works.
Right.
The world changed.
That's right.
The world was already changing, and then
COVID changed it.
COVID chopped it off, and people aren't in offices like they used to be. People don't all do team meetings live in the room like they used to.
And they should, because I'm going to tell you, when we stopped communicating.
You know why I come to your meeting on a regular basis?
Yes, sir.
First off, it's old school. I learn stuff every time I'm sitting in the room as a student. I'm here to learn. The more I know about what's going on in real estate, the better I am prepared to serve the real estate industry.
Yes, sir.
And there's no better place to learn what's going on in real estate than sitting in that team meeting.
Well, I appreciate you saying.
I come to your meetings for me. Kind of say, there's a selfish component. Obviously, I want to be seen. I want to, maintain the relationship. But there's a selfish component for what I learn when I'm sitting in the meeting about the business that I'm trying to serve. So one of the things that occurred to me years ago is if I can find ways to make a realtor a better resource for their client, then that cannot help but put me in demand.
That's honestly, and I'm so thankful for the fact that you see our meetings that way, because when I'm leading those meetings, my goal is really to help those people sitting, and it's not about what I'll get out of it. It's about, I want them to be as informed as they can be, because we're in a relationship business. We're not salesmen either. And I hate the fact that they call us real estate salesmen, because I can't make someone buy a home that they don't love or they don't want. Now, if it's someone who's looking at something as purely an investment standpoint, I have to understand how to explain the investment, but I also, that's a detach. And if that person's looking at it that way, that's not as fun to work with them, just being honest. And maybe it could be productive, but for me personally, it's more fun knowing that you're going to create something that people are going to get to live in and have memories in it. And, it goes back to me growing up myself. I grew up in really meager stuff. We had one bathroom in our house. And, like now, if somebody doesn't have a bathroom with every bedroom, they're no interest, right?
Yeah.
And I remember waiting in line for all of these things, but they taught me that, and the happiest I ever was in my life was when I was in the smallest environment I ever lived in with my parents. And, when I was an engineer, and my mind works like an engineer's in terms of problem solving and math, and those are the things I was interested in, but I didn't like being an engineer. And, I feel like God brought me to this profession completely by accident, first of all, in my mind, but it was in God's plan. And I was dating a girl in college, and she wanted to get her real estate license because she was an apartment leasing agent, and she would get paid more money if she passed this thing. And she was struggling to pass it. And she said, "I'll tell you what, if you'll take the exam with me, or take the class with me, and help me pass, I'll pay for yours." I didn't have the money to pay for it, and she did. And, to this day, I could not be more thankful, but it wasn't the path I was choosing. This thing came out of nowhere and chose me. And, then when I got to start helping the first people, the first 4 clients I helped, I can tell you who they are, where they are, and what they're doing right now, because we're still friends. that I've watched each of them start incredible businesses and do things. And then when they struggle in parts of their life, they'll come back to me. And it's nothing about real estate. It's about the connections we made. And, one of them is a friend of mine named Tim Helms. I'm going to call today when I get out of here. His wife and he were great friends of mine. They separated later. His ex-wife ended up working for me, but I've maintained friendships with both of them. They're two of my closest friends on earth. Even though they're not still together, it didn't break us. I mean, I think that's unique, but it's all about wanting to serve people and finding your place in being this servant, that mentality, and like always wanting to learn. Like when I go into a room, I'm learning stuff from the people in there. When we spoke to that group, I learned as much that day, more than what I gave, I can promise you. And I wasn't there soliciting people to work for me or anything, but guess what? One of the people that was in the audience, a girl named Kate Finsky, that asked the great questions in the audience, and I thought, way too smart, way too great to come to my team. Day after calls me and, hey, is there any way you would think about me being on your team? That wasn't my reason for going, but right when I was walking in here, I'd just getting off the phone with her, trying to help her figure out how to handle something in a transaction. And, Ed, I hope the other thing you feel in our team is we're a melting pot. We're trying to serve our community. So if everybody's exactly like me, we'll only serve the people I can serve.
Yeah.
I'm trying to have a team that can help people that might be politically different than me, might be personally different from me, may think completely out of the box of how I do, because they still need help doing the right thing. And it can't be about money. Like, money is the greatest corruptor there is on the planet used improperly. But we all need it to serve our businesses, and our businesses are judged on profitability, because we won't stay in business if that's not there. But I've never once felt from you that, I do this because I need to make all this money. Even when you were talking about you were struggling at the time trying to grow your business, I feel like your business has grown astronomically the last 4 years. Maybe it hasn't, but I feel it if it hasn't. But the service level has stayed the same. And that's what your goal is. People tell me, oh, Jim, your team's so big, you couldn't possibly care. Doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Right.
It has to be smart growth. If I just grew without the ability to maintain that level of service, that's not what I'm interested in. I want to be known as being known as the premier home inspection company in the Triangle is nice and it sounds nice, but that's not what I'm after. If I'm serving the real estate community and the clients as they come along, and to your point, we see it everything, the full spectrum of the socioeconomic spectrum. We treat and we do them all the same. They all get there's only white glove treatment. Everybody gets the same treatment JAG gets. I mean, I would be lying to say that JAG is just another client to our company. It's not. But there's nothing I do for you guys that everybody else doesn't get too.
Right. And when we don't want you to be just ours, because then the impartiality might be broken too.
Right.
And one thing you said just now, and it's something I want people to know about our business and relate to, because that's what this is about. This is about these guys getting to get a view of two people that collaborate but don't own each other's businesses. Ed, there was so little information about who was this or where were they when I was younger in my career. I actually was the top agent in Raleigh for 10 years before I even knew it. I had no clue. And if I hadn't joined Coldwell Banker, I would probably never found out that we were the top agent because it didn't matter. At some point when our business just grew big enough that, we start getting recognized globally, I start figuring it out, but I wasn't doing it for that. I didn't ever have it. That was a consequence of caring about people and trying to keep these relationships alive. And, when something happens in those people's lives, not about housing, about life, I want to be the first person they call because I am invested in them as people. When a friend of mine like Joe Abbott calls me and tells me his cousin has cancer and he's not sure what to do, I know I'm not a cancer doctor, but I want to be there to support him. And then I want to help him figure out the best I can. What can we do how do we facilitate something that makes your life okay? Or another client calls me and says, my dog, I'm so sorry, I can't even work today. I'm not going to be able to make it to meet you. And they start telling me what's wrong with their dog. Well, that stops my day and I want to go help them figure it out. So I might call an old client of mine like Sandy Albright and say, Sandy, I know you're a vet. I know you're a patient, but can you help me help this person? Because this dog is their whole life. And if I don't reach out, I'm not sure that she's going to be okay mentally. And, stuff like that, that's a part of what we do. And I sense that from you. I watched this last little thing we were doing at the Women's Club. I was listening to people in the audience asking questions, and they were asking of someone who was supposedly an expert in something else here on the stand. But I felt like that person, and it was the only one on that crowd that I felt this from, was there for the wrong reason and were self-promoting a little bit. But what they were saying was actually not accurate. And I watched, you stepped in mildly, corrected what this person had said without killing them, but so the audience didn't get the wrong picture. And I'm not even sure if you're aware of, but I was. And then I was like, man, I'm glad, because I was getting ready to. And then when you did, all I did afterwards is confirm what you had just said, because you fixed the problem. And I would have loved to have been at those tables when that person was there to see what was it like at that one, because honestly, sitting at those 12 tables in there that day made me look at my business a little bit and think, there's some people in here I'm learning from. Some of them were the people who were just beginning, but I was thinking, it's a unique approach this person has. And how do I find somebody on my team to incorporate some of these ideas? That's why I like doing it, and I'm sure you were finding the same thing, right?
I go into that thinking two things. One, I might be able to help someone else understand something. I might come away, to your point, understanding something I didn't understand before, or something I'd never even thought about. But now, I get challenged that way. And so, there's sometimes it's hard to just you can't let misinformation go unchecked.
Yes,
because
then it becomes a fact, and you put your stamp on it, right, because you didn't help.
You got a room full of people go out with that wrong impression.
Well, and yesterday when you came to our meeting was supposed to be about these two builders that were sitting up front, and honestly, I knew I had them there as well, and there was some things I wanted to educate them on that are going on in our industry right now. They're great builders. Homestead's a great building company, and I was pleased they were there to have that. And I know people in the audience like thinking, well, you're not giving them enough time to talk about what they want to, but sometimes making sure that the global knowledge of things that are happening right now politically across our landscape, and then understanding really what's going on with our National Association of Realtors and RRAR, and how sometimes even those organizations set up to protect us, money becomes more important than the agents sometimes. And, we're going through a period of transition as a business. I'm talking about real estate, not just talking about JAG. I'm saying real estate. And things don't change. Our business is about relationships with people. Houses just happen to be the product that's in between it. And our local and national are forgetting that. They're worried more about the syntax of how you're going to do something than what your purpose in doing it is sometimes. And I think we're caught out in the weeds sometimes right now. And part of it's political. Part of it is, the times we're in when we're having struggles from side to side that are causing it. We have to face that. But the reality is, I don't care what someone's faith is outside of mine. I'm going to share mine with them. They don't have to agree with it. I'm going to share my thoughts on things. They can disagree with those as well, because I feel like iron sharpens iron. If there are two people expressing their opinions equally and they both have valid points and you can listen, there's a point somewhere in here in the middle where if both parties could agree to get there, they're going to be a lot smarter than they were when they're out here. And, and one of the things I also wanted to do in here is make you human today too. Like, I know you wear a wedding band, so I'm assuming there's a wife somewhere that's supporting what you're doing, or you wouldn't be doing it, right?
I'm fortunate to, my wife Kit and I have been married for coming up 26 years. And we both got, it's a blended family. Our children are all grown. Her two live here in the Triangle, and 3 grandchildren among them, and then my daughter and granddaughter in Fayetteville, and my son and his daughter are in Greenville area. And we have been in the Triangle. We moved here in 2014. When I told you I started this business later in life, we moved here, and I decided, what was I going to do next? Because I had been working in industrial setups for the previous 18 years and in industrial facilities for 25 before that. So I came here and I was trying to figure out, what do I want to do? Well, I knew I wanted to be my own boss, and I knew I wanted to be home every night. So what fits that bill? And I was thinking about it and talking to people about it, and someone suggested home inspections. And I thought, you talk about having the vision, being able to see a thing. That was something that I felt like I could see and understand all facets of it, that I didn't think there was going to be anything about the business, at ground level, from a business standpoint or from a technical, the inspection standpoint, that I couldn't understand, that I didn't conceptually already understand. And that turned out to be true, because I'm a pretty handy guy, and my background, you take what we do in the home inspection business and you take that onto an industrial scale. Every facet of those industrial facilities I touched on in my career. Maintenance technician, maintenance planner, planning the repairs for other groups, technical writing the procedures for doing those things, system design, designing control systems for various facilities, and then ultimately, and project management, I was a startup test engineer for nuclear power plants. Worked in nuclear as a controls tech, as a maintenance planner, as a startup test engineer, and that is where you go in those facilities. As you can imagine, there are probably a lower percentage of the control systems in the plant are for actually producing power.
Right.
And the majority of the equipment and systems and controls are for safe shutdown of the plant. So when you build that, someone has to go in and write the test procedures and then go out and perform the test procedures. And there's a lot of manipulations that you do, signals that you introduce or signals that you take away, and then the system is supposed to automatically do what it's supposed to do. And you go out, and there's, for a given system, there might be 100 or more different things you have to do to challenge that system to prove that it does all the things it's supposed to do in these actual events. That's what startup testing is about in a nuclear plant. So I had that background. Ultimately, after doing controls design system, controls design for DuPont for one of their business units for a few years, was recruited away onto the sales side. And so then I was on the industrial sales side for about 18 years, kind of heavy travel. Before we moved here, I kind of was a division manager for an industrial services company.
Where were you living?
Living in Greenville. When I ended up in the Greenville area doing the work for DuPont.
So how did you make the choice to move to the Triangle?
Two reasons. One, kids and grandkids were here. My wife had retired, so she was very interested in moving here. And I felt whatever I did next, I wanted to do in this market. And that was, that was the big thing.
Well, let me ask you this, because, I tell people all the time, there is no retirement plan in the Bible, and there isn't. And at my age, I feel like I'm just getting started. Like, I know there's a lot of my friends that went to high school with, went to college with, that have already retired and quit their businesses. And I feel like a spring chicken getting ready to start again, because, when I look at the Bible, God chose Abraham to have a baby at 99 years old. I don't want to take on that task, but you know what? I feel like the wisdom, my dad, when I think it was about 8 or 9 years old, my dad died early in my life, but I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I was sitting on some steps in our backyard playing with one of our dogs. And my dad said, "Son, if I would love to be your age, but if I had to leave my brain here and the knowledge and the experience I've gotten going through life, I wouldn't want to be your age. I'd rather be my age and keep the wisdom I've gained through the years." And, when he said that to me, I didn't get it at the time. And then when I was 18, he had a similar talk with me again right before he passed. And we were talking through it. And I was like, "Dad, how could you not want to live forever? How could you say, you're not doing well? How could you feel like you'd still rather be there even though you're not healthy?" And he said, "You don't understand. It's not all about that. I know I got a place I'm going to go live later in heaven, that don't worry." But he also said, "Son, your physical body's going to fail at some point. But if your mind is still working and going towards these things, that's where I want to be." And I feel that way about me now, because I remember what the 21-year-old me looked like. And I remember that guy was working for himself. And I remember that person hadn't learned the lessons of helping other people helps yourself more than it helps them. And now that I'm in that position, I feel like, well, why would I even be thinking about retiring? I just got useful.
I'll tell you, I think, to your point, two things come to mind. One, I think this is probably the most gratifying time to work, because I don't have the pressures I had as a young man. I've recovered from the bad decisions I made as a young man.
Yes.
And so, there's a lot about this that's just more relaxed.
It's joyous.
I, there's nothing like having your own show,
Right.
I wish I'd done that, 40 years earlier, but you can't do that.
Let me just tell you, God's timing is perfect. I just heard the career path you took to get there. That's why you're successful now. That path you were on,
those things
prepared you.
I had to do those things. But the other thing is, one of my biggest surprises in life is turning a corner and seeing myself in a plate glass window. I'm still a very young man on the inside.
And when you see yourself, you're like, but is that me?
But unfortunately, you turn a corner.
I'm the same way.
That smack upside.
Look, when we see this thing later on video, I'll be like, wait a minute. There's no way those two young guys look like that.
Yeah.
It can't be possible.
Disappointing, but
doesn't your business keep you younger too?
It does.
It's giving you purpose.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's the thing too, Jim. When the day comes that I no longer want to do this, it's going to be, what do I want to do now? It's not going to be, finally, I don't have to do anything.
Right.
And I tell my guys all the time, because I'm my age and they're all significantly younger, I remind them, look, guys, in the way I try to coach, I won't say train, I'll say coach, because it's an ongoing process with these guys is, understand, you want to be the best at this you can be for a couple of reasons. One, it pays off for you today. But second is you guys aren't going to be working for me forever. You're young guys. There's no way.
That's right.
It's not possible.
Right.
So you want to be thinking down the road about, being so good at this that you're set for life. And I'll tell you this. And we know this big picture wise on the way the economy and just the way the world is today, that a lot of young people are smarter to go toward trades versus versus higher education. And everybody should make their own decision.
And that's because nobody wants to do the trades, but the trades secure. It's a secure job.
I'm going to tell you, and this business is one of, lump this in with that, because a young person who gets in this business and takes it seriously and does it well, people will be shocked at how good a living.
Takes it seriously. That's the big element. Like, I'm training people too that want it to be easy. They're looking for hey, I heard you could make money, and that doesn't exist.
Let me tell you this.
It's a commitment.
Let me tell you this. And it's not an original saying, obviously, but I remind my guys all the time, some days you eat the bear, some days the bear eats you. In our business, on busy days, my guys are doing 2 inspections a day, single guy, 2 inspections a day. And if you get 2 of the wrong house, you've had a hellacious day.
Yes, sir.
If you get 2 small new bills on a slab, man, you get away with something.
Yes.
And so, some days you eat the bear, some days the bear eats you. And it's just, like I said about, earlier, we treat all clients and all houses the same. You want to put in the order, it goes on the schedule, we do it in its turn. And some of them you show up and, I got to eat the bear.
You know what, though? You just brought up something, and I'm going to ask you really tough questions. Ready to come. You brought it on yourself. You mentioned slab, and then we also know that the majority of the houses in the triangle, other than the production-built homes, are in these things called crawl spaces now instead. Differentiating between these two things, and I both think they have their place. What do you feel like the challenges with slab construction are, and what do you think the benefits are? If you had a perfectly flat surface, like what are the challenges you see there, and is it different? Is it difficult to get a home air regulated when you're on a slab? And we know hot air rises, right? But you're having to put everything in the attic and force it down. What are the challenges?
Well, slab house, you're going to eliminate all the negatives of the crawl space. A crawl space to your point, you're forcing either package unit sitting outside or the indoor unit for the HVAC sitting in the attic. And in a normal attic, it's 145, 150 degrees up there in the summer. So all your duct work, every time, which if you're standing under a register upstairs, when the system first kicks on, the first thing you're feeling is hot air.
Yes.
It's got to purge all that, cool the ductwork down. So there are some energy efficiency issues related to a naturally aspirated attic. There are primarily moisture and or structural issues related to a naturally vented crawl space. And when I say moisture issues, we're talking about primarily ground moisture.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you from many years, and we've done over 7,000 homes in the Triangle area. So there's moisture and radon. It depends on what's under the footprint of that house. And there are houses around the Triangle that the ground is just naturally wet. You go under that house in a drought, and the ground's going to be down.
Yeah.
Conversely, there are houses in the Triangle that are always like a desert under the house.
And that can be as bad as being.
Well, actually, no.
Okay.
There's really not a downside to that.
Okay.
Because if it's, obviously you still want the vapor barrier. You need the protection. But the lack of moisture, because there's going to always be enough moisture in the air of that it's not going to be too desiccated under there to be helpful to the wood or anything. But that too damp ground, if you don't have that covered properly, I'll give you an example. We did a beautiful home up in Timberlake, big country estate, if you will. It's about a 4,000 square foot, very large home, very large piece of property on a vented crawl space, 20-year-old house. We did this house in 2019. I won't ever forget it. I've got pictures of it in some of the classes I do, and you'll understand why. 20-year-old house at that time had never had a vapor barrier. Naturally damp ground.
Oh, my gosh.
So when I went under there, I immediately knew what the problem was on site because all of the joists in the girders were sunk in. Because what happens in that moist environment, fungus gets to that wood and basically destroys it the same way a termite does. A fungus will inject an enzyme, dissolve and extract the cellulose, and just leave the shell of the wood. And I've got a photo with my screwdriver through one of those joists with what looks like cake crumbs on the other side, and that was about the consistency of that piece of wood. And easily half the floor structure was going to have to be replaced simply because they skipped what at the time was probably a $500 vapor barrier. So that ground was naturally down, and it just set up those problems. So you can even get into trouble, even if you have the ground covered well, you can get into trouble if based on configuration. Sometimes you'll go in a crawl space and you go in, all the vents are open, and around the perimeter, the wood moisture may be good. What they've done, the way they designed the HVAC ductwork, there's a horseshoe of ductwork in that crawl space. In the middle of that, the airflow is totally cut off from the rest of the space. And you crawl in there then, and it's like you went in a different crawl space. The wood looks different. The moisture's a lot higher.
Right.
There's microbial growth all over it, et cetera, et cetera. So it can be, what's the ground moisture? It can be what's the configuration? So when you identify a crawl space like that, just being an open vented crawl space is not good enough.
Right.
You probably should encapsulate it. You encapsulate, you have to condition.
Right.
Either with the HVAC, which is what they normally do in new houses, they have like a dryer vent, that the flaps open when you're moving air, it closes so that you don't draw that environment air back into your HVAC system.
Right.
Or you need a continuous duty, commercial grade dehumidifier with a drain line out of the space so that you're controlling that. Because if you have conditions, either you don't have either you got a lot of wet ground and it's not covered, or you just don't have good airflow, because the whole point of venting them is for airflow to prevent moisture being built up. And sometimes they go right under them and build them in a way, maybe design the HVAC.
Were people living in that house at the time?
Yeah.
And didn't know it, right?
No idea.
And that's the thing I'm more amazed at is we live with things that are wrong with our houses. Like, I'm so thrilled that we do inspections on homes, because even if the transaction doesn't go through, maybe I get to live in a safer house when the thing's over with, right?
Unfortunately, and I'm not selling inspections here, but people who've lived in their house for a while, if they're not handy and if they're not going in those places like crawl spaces and attics, they're very often, in fact, I'd say in our business, they're most of the time in for big surprises, because the problem is this, or the issue is this: problems don't stay small. And listen, they not know about them until they're big.
Well, let me tell you this. You just now reminded me of my own house. I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? I've lived there for a long time. I hadn't had an inspection done recently. I'm going to promise you this. You wait. The girls are getting ready to set an appointment up for you to come inspect. I'm not thinking about selling my house, but I got to live in it. And talking to you today has got me thinking, man, I've been worried about everybody else. I need to worry about my own. And I'm going to get it. Absolutely.
$500 problem might become a $5,000 problem, or it might become a $50,000.
Listen, let me tell you this too. Your rates have not gone up enough for the service that you provide. And I say that, and it's rarely, I say that to my attorney friends as well. You know, the things y'all add to our business and the comfort level that's there. When I hear people say, oh, well, we don't have the money to pay for this inspection, I think, oh my God, you don't understand. This is the best money you're going to spend, and the comfort you'll get out of it. They're like, well, what if nothing's wrong? The peace of mind you gain by knowing that is there. But it's rare you look at a house, there's not one thing wrong. We're humans. We can't build a perfect house, right?
I appreciate you saying that too, and I'm not gonna go right out and raise my prices, but that's good feedback. But what I would say for anyone watching this who if you are a client or you're working with clients who are just trying to get over the finish line, we do have what's called a flex fund service, and it's one of the options that's automatically put in front of them. The agent or the client can select flex fund when they're ordering to begin with in our system, or they're just telling us, or it's one of their payment options. But it's basically our pay at close service. There is a small fee for $45. Everything that you're doing just gets pushed to closing,
right?
And they can get in, and that's a benefit for someone for two reasons. One, they're just trying to get across the finish line.
Yes.
Because they know if they can ever get in the house, hell, their monthly payment probably drops.
That's right.
Compared to what they're paying rent.
Especially once the tax advantage is figured out. I mean, we were talking about this yesterday. The rental rates have just gone up astronomically in the Triangle, and you're paying someone else's mortgage. You're helping someone else gain wealth, and with the appreciation we've seen in the Triangle and will continue, because we're blessed. We are in an environment that is the number one place in the world to go right now. I'm not talking about just the United States. Everybody is here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we are, if I was describing Raleigh, I would say we are a big, small town in terms of what it's like to live here. And I say that based on when I go to Charlotte, I feel like, oh my God, Charlotte's this metropolitan area that's too big. Or if I go to Atlanta, or I was in California and Los Angeles last week, and I'm sitting there thinking, I don't want to live in this kind of environment. And, it's almost like, because we're in North Carolina and, our age range, the show Mayberry was like a huge popular show at the time. And I think Andy Griffin gave people such a great view of the kindness that we could be here, whether it was true or not. And now, I think the great news for us is people come in here expecting us not to be very sharp too sometimes, and I think that's where they're surprised, because I believe there's an intelligence hub that's here that's incredible, but you can be kind and smart at the same time, and this is a great place to do that, right?
It's funny you said big, small town. Small, big town. I live in a town called Triangle, North Carolina. And I'll tell you, it's a unique perspective because I moved here and immediately started this business. So from the time I first came to the Triangle as a resident, business has taken me to Wake Forest, to Clayton, to Apex, Holly Springs. I've always, for the entire time I've lived here, I think about it sometimes that someone who's from here, maybe they grew up in Cary,
they think they're from Cary.
Their view is very Cary-centric. And yes, there are all these other towns, but my experience since I've been here has shaped my perspective on this market.
Yes.
And to me, this is the Triangle. This is one.
I feel the same way, and we should rename it, to be honest, because I know I work in all these peripheral areas, you do as well, and truly Raleigh gets the name of it, and it's all clumped under Raleigh, but truth is, Raleigh's one of the smaller pieces we do business with, and now it is the Triangle.
Yeah.
And it's not, it might not even be the Triangle, maybe it's a circle. We call it the Triangle, but it's this wide circumference.
Well, our market today on a regular basis runs, we don't go to Burlington that much, but it runs basically Burlington to Smithfield and Lewisburg to Sanford.
That's same market I work.
Guess why we're there?
Well, I'm thankful.
Our market keeps moving east too.
And it, it has to, as we run out of land.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's expanding too, because as more people get comfortable moving here, they all want something different. And, some of you mentioned Sanford. Some of them may enjoy Sanford better. Some of them may enjoy Mebane better. Some of them may say Wake Forest is the perfect spot. And they're all a little different. But, and I mean, really, boy, when I sit down and think of it, there's 20 or 30 cities making up our circle now. I mean, the Rollsvilles, the Apex. I mean, we're saying some, but Fuquay, Anger. I mean, and they all have their own personality, but uniquely, I think people who live in North Carolina in general are just really kind people that want to help other people. I believe that people, when they move here from other parts of the country, they might bring some of that, but they adapt and become North Carolinians. Like, it's very rare that I have someone who transfers from another state that if I meet them 10 years later, talk about that other state. They're really sunk into Carolina by it.
Yeah, I'm not a North Carolina native. I came here.
I'm from Virginia. Same thing.
Straight out of school to go to work for the power company. And I did leave a time or two, but I always came back. And that was, it's where I was supposed to be. Now, and I've had the fortune to live in various parts. They've all been in the eastern half of the state, but I've lived around quite a bit of North Carolina.
But the only thing I want to say today, and for the public out there, like, I hope today you got to know the person behind HomeTeam, because it's really important, and it was important to me because having trade vendors that we work with, we want you to understand why we choose these folks, because I'm told all the time I'm supposed to give 3 names for this and 3 names. I don't do that because I can't find 3 people that are at Roberson. It doesn't exist. So I give 1. And, and it takes, look, I'll be honest, it's hard to get on our vendor list But once people are on our vendor list, we're as loyal to them as they are to us, not because there's something in it for us, but because we are trying to find trust wherever it exists. And we want people that convey the same principles we do to our clients. And that's what HomeTeam does for us. So I appreciate you today, brother.
I appreciate
Thank you so much.
Relationship, and it's a special relationship, but it's because it's easy and it's natural. And I'm going to tell you something, and then I'll shut up. We work with a lot of teams. We work with a lot of agencies. We work with a lot of agents. JAG is the lowest maintenance relationship we have.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
See, and that's what we want to be. And, you know, I hear all the time, oh, y'all are so big, you must be this, you must be that. No, we're just like Raleigh.
That's what I'm telling you.
We're a big, small business.
That's what I'm saying. For the renown that this team has and for the volume of business that you do, it is literally our lowest maintenance relationship. And we're always there for you. But you guys know all they need to do is ring.
And it's funny. So when I go to these national things to speak, all these people there act like I'm some big what to do. And I'm like shocked. And I met the owner of the Los Angeles Clippers who was at this meeting I just came from. He was sitting behind me. He's been reaching out to me since then, wanting to do something with me. And I'm thinking, man, he's this, you know, it's funny, and I hope we never view ourselves as being this whatever. I think I'm only as good as the client I'm serving right now until I get to the next one. And we carry forward a next mentality. And by that, I mean, I don't mean we leave people behind. I mean, what are we doing next? It's not about what we've done to get there. It's we got to prove ourselves every single time. Nobody gives us hey, you don't have to be good this time. We know that new customer relationship, if we don't do the right things by them, we won't have any more.
We understand it's the same for us.
That's right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.